Welcome to the City Show. I'm your host, John Zimkus. In the first couple of months of every year, you have the State of the Union address, you have the State of Ohio address, the State of States, all go across the country. Well, we're going to have something like that today, but it's not going to be an address. It's going to be the State of the City discussion. And who better to discuss it with than the man whose job is to manage the city, City Manager Scott Brunka. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, John. Good to be here again.
Scott, first off, how is the state of the city?
We are, I tell folks we're in a very good position. So, financially, the city's finances are as strong as they've ever been. I think, city administration and city council are certainly fiscally conservative. So we've always kind of managed our finances in a conservative manner. And so we're in a very good place. Our location, as I think most folks know, there is a lot of growth in Warren County and specifically in and around Lebanon. So, we're seeing good business and residential development. Good, quality type development. So I think we're in a very good place. Warren County, Lebanon's a great place to be. We're always talking to businesses about, our location right between that Cincinnati and Dayton market. It's just a good place to live, work, and we've made quite a bit of investment in our park system as well.
Before we get into specifics about Lebanon, I want to talk about something that happened, probably 250 miles away. Is the East Palestine, the train derailment, can it affect us? Is it affecting us?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's a question over the last couple of weeks we got asked quite a bit. I think most folks know about 10 years ago, the city decommissioned all of our wells and we transitioned to purchasing all of our water from Cincinnati Waterworks. When we did that, we were very focused on making sure that we built redundancy into that water delivery system and that we built safeguards into it, knowing that the primary treatment plant for Cincinnati Waterworks does intake water from the Ohio River. And obviously there was concern with the East Palestine derailment and potential contaminants on what that might have on water quality. But as we've told folks, we also have the ability to receive water from Cincinnati Waterworks from their Bolton plant in Fairfield. And that draws water from the Great Miami River aquifer. So we always wanted to have that dual system, dual capabilities in terms of getting finished water to our residents. Really for situations like this, things can happen and you've got to have a contingency plan in place to make sure that the service to our residents is not interrupted. So I would say Cincinnati Waterworks did a great job of, once it happened, they immediately started monitoring water quality and kind of tracking the levels of contaminants as they worked their way down the Ohio River. They always had full confidence that their water treatment plant could remove the contaminant or contaminants that may be present in the Ohio River. But out of an abundance of caution, they just went ahead and shut down that water intake system at their treatment plant and just kind of let that potentially contaminated water flow by. And during that time period, we were receiving water from the Bolton treatment plant, as well as the city's required to have at least 1 day of water storage above ground. So our residents didn't see any interruption in service, there was no water quality issues at all. And that's how the plan is supposed to work. That's why we build that redundancy and contingencies in place.
I wasn't aware of the Great Miami aquifer. I always thought it was all the Ohio River.
No, we have dual feeds and dual water supplies coming up into Lebanon from Cincinnati Waterworks. So we also have an emergency connection with Warren County Water. So on State Route 48, kind of north of Lebanon, we have a 12-inch water main that's interconnected to their system. So we can also receive water from Warren County in emergency situations if necessary.
Okay. Now, we have, there's a lot of things going to happen in Lebanon, especially with road work. several times in the next few years, there's going to be construction on roads, which is great to see in Lebanon. What's the first thing we're going to see?
This summer, you're going to see quite a few of our state routes resurface. So a typical year for Lebanon in terms of our investment in our road improvement program, whether it's reconstruction or resurfacing, a typical year is around $5 to $6 million worth of road work. This summer, you're going to see $9 to $10 million worth of road improvement work. A big portion of that is the resurfacing of State Route 63 or West Main Street, and then kind of those 3 blocks of Broadway downtown, and then out Warren and Columbus Avenue, which is US 42. So all of that's going to get done this summer. It's a huge project, about $4 million. We did receive several grants to help pay for it, fortunately, but the city's also investing quite a bit of our own local tax dollars into making that program viable. So that's going to be much needed. I think folks are going to see a tremendous, impact with that many state routes getting paved. It's really the first year of a 3-year cycle where ODOT and the city, we're going to be paving all of the state routes through town over the next 3 years. So that's a significant project. We're going to be reconstructing Cherry Street this summer. That's another.
Now, what does reconstruction mean?
Right. So resurfacing would be, if you go out and kind of grind down the first inch and a half of asphalt and then just resurface it. Pretty straightforward, relatively easy to do. Reconstruction is where you have to get in and just do a full, remove all the pavement, remove the concrete, and just rebuild the road from the base up. And we get into areas or streets where we have to do that based on the condition of the roadway, or if there's old utility pipes underground and we need to get in there and replace those pipes now. Typically, by the time we're done with that, there's not much road left, so we're in kind of a complete roadway reconstruction mode. Cherry Street and a lot of the older streets in town, they have that really, I call it like that high crown, if you will. There's not many left. We've replaced most of them at this point, but Cherry Street is one that still has areas of that. So it'll be a complete reconstruction.
Does that include sewer lines?
We will be improving the sewer lines. We will be replacing water mains. So it is a lot of the underground utility work that's going to get done first. Folks always ask me, well, why does it take so long to rebuild a road? The vast majority of the time is replacing the pipes, water, sewer, even Duke Energy doing the gas main before we put that new asphalt down. So that really takes much longer than the actual road construction part of it. But we always try to make sure we're replacing utilities that need to be replaced before we make that investment in a new road.
Now, with the 63 Broadway and 42, you go from a state route to a U.S. route. Does that affect at all who pays for it?
It doesn't. It's all, kind of under that ODOT umbrella. So in terms of who pays for what, it does not have an impact on that. I'm sure at the state level there's some variation in those designations, but for Lebanon, it doesn't impact us. There's still, with it being either a U.S. route or a state route, there's still certain areas that ODOT manages, or that the city doesn't have complete control over what happens. One of those being speed limits. So that is a question we get a lot, is, well, why can't you lower the speed limit on Columbus Avenue or on Main Street? And that is largely because the speed limit is controlled by ODOT, and there's a process that you have to go through.
Does the city find who's going to work on the road, or does ODOT?
So we bid it out. You can do it either way. Typically, we will do what's called local let, which means that we will put the project out for bid and we will manage it locally. And that allows us to save a little bit of money. So if we were just to have ODOT do all of that, which they certainly could do, we would have to pay them kind of administration charge. And so we found it more economical for us just to manage it internally.
Would the Cherry Street work and the 63 Broadway work be different companies?
Oh, yeah. So those will be bid out separately. We've already awarded the contract for the state route paving work. So that contract has been awarded. Barrett Paving is going to be doing the work on that. And then we'll bid out a separate contract for the Cherry Street work. And that won't go out until a little bit later this summer.
Now, there probably has to be a great deal of planning as far as traffic goes.
Right.
Because Lebanon does have a rush hour. Trying to get onto Main Street or Broadway at around 3:30, 4 o'clock, it can be tough. What kind of plans are in place to make sure the roads still are open a little bit?
Yeah, so with the resurfacing work, there's a provision that they have to maintain at least one lane of traffic while they're doing the work. So really there shouldn't be any sort of extended closures associated with the state route paving that's done this summer. Cherry Street and road reconstructions, that's a different story. So that road will be closed to through traffic. It's been a little bit of a challenge with that because Cherry Street, I think as most folks know, that's kind of the heart of the festival area. The annual carriage parade goes down Cherry Street. A lot of the festivals are there at Cherry and Mulberry. So what we have been working on is making sure when we put the contract documents out for bid, that there are specific dates that certain sections of Cherry Street have to be open so that we don't disrupt any of the planned events. So it's a lot of planning. That's part of what, our engineering department does a great job of just trying to think through these things. And there's certainly disruption with any type of project, but we try to minimize it.
Now, the reconstruction, for years, Main Street was a problem, and we did that with Main Street.
Yes.
Was it Mulberry we did it also, or Silver?
Let's see, Silver Street years ago. Yeah, Silver Street, that was kind of right before I got here with the city, which was over 20 years ago. And what's interesting is we're actually resurfacing Silver Street this year. So it's come full circle. But like examples would be New Street is a complete reconstruction by the post office there that we did relatively recently. Summit Street is another one. So we've gotten into some of these reconstructions. We try to do one road a year. That's kind of a complete reconstruction utility work in addition to our typical paving program.
Now, all we talked about so far is 2023. What's planned for 2024?
Yeah, so again, we'll be next in 24, there'll be more state routes. I think at that point it's East Main Street and Cincinnati Avenue, which is also US 42, will get resurfaced. And then in 2025, the rest of Broadway, all the way north of Miller Road, will get resurfaced. Probably the biggest kind of road improvement project that we're working on right now is Glosser Road. So Glosser Road from Main Street down to Cincinnati Avenue is going to get reconstructed and widened. Right now it's kind of a less than standard width, so it's going to get widened to more of a 3-lane section. But the big improvement will be at the intersection of Glosser Road and Cincinnati Avenue, where we are looking at doing a roundabout there. So that'll be Lebanon's first roundabout. But the traffic engineers, as they kind of evaluated the different options, really felt like that would be the best fit from an intersection safety standpoint, but also just kind of keeping traffic flowing through that intersection.
Now, a lot of people aren't fans of roundabouts.
Right.
What's the advantage of having a roundabout?
Yeah, I mean, it allows traffic to keep flowing. So instead of a typical signalized intersection where, you've got, certain directions, you're stopped for a period of time, it really just allows for a more efficient traffic flow through that intersection. The studies have indicated it's safer. A lot of accidents occur, at intersections where there's left turning movements, so on and so forth. So it reduces accidents and just really helps move traffic through there more efficiently. Now, it's not always the best answer, and that's why we had our traffic consultant evaluate it. And there's been some areas where we've looked at them in the past and they came back and said, no, it's just not a good fit. But for that intersection, the Glosser Road, Cincinnati Avenue intersection, they really came back and said that would be the best fit. It also worked well. There's a historic house at that intersection. So this allows us to kind of shift the cul-de-sac a little bit, or the roundabout a little bit away from that house to minimize the impact that it has on that historic building.
What's planned for 2025?
I think it's going to be just more road resurfacing. We've got some additional projects that we're trying to get focused on and get funding on, and that would be widening of State Route 63, certain sections to a 3-lane section. So we have been pursuing funding for that. I think a lot of folks know State Route 63 is going to be widened from Monroe all the way to 741 to 5 lanes. The county's taking the lead and moving forward with that. Our approach has been really from 741 into and through Lebanon, it's going to be no more than 3 lanes. So there are sections that are already 3 lanes. Most of it through downtown is 3 lanes. But we're looking to try to secure funding to have a consistent 3-lane roadway really out to 741.
How much of that between 741 and downtown Lebanon is Lebanon?
So we recently annexed what's called the Parkside development. So, what's in the city as you're heading out towards 741 on the north side, that's going to be, it's about a 250-acre development. That's all in the city. So it doesn't get all the way out to Union Village, but it gets quite a ways out there. So I can't tell you the exact distance per se, but as you're heading out, you'll go past Cardinal Landscaping on the left and kind of that big farm up on the hill. All of that, as well as the next farm over, is now in the city and was annexed recently. And that's the Parkside development, which is currently in the engineering phase.
Let's talk about that. That's going to be a major change in the Lebanon community.
Yeah, it's a $400 million plus mixed-use development. It's one that the developer's gone through and gotten kind of the rezoning and the planning commission approval. And they're in the engineering phase of the project right now. But it will trigger widening State Route 63 to 3 lanes along their frontage. So that's something that the developer will be required to fund as part of their development. And they're working with ODOT on those plans to move forward with that. But it's going to be a little bit of everything. I think what we tried to focus on as we worked with the developer on this project is making sure there was a mix of housing types, trying to appeal to kind of a wide demographic and a wide range of folks that are looking to move into Lebanon. It does include senior living, kind of assisted living component. So that's a significant portion of the development. It does include a little bit of retail office right along State Route 63. And then you have what you would think of as typical single family homes. There's going to be some townhomes. There will be some apartments there as well. So really it's, it's supposed to be a diverse development that appeals to a wide range of folks.
How many acres does that involve?
It's 250 acres total. Yeah, so it is certainly the largest development that Lebanon's seen, and it's unique. I think it's there's other areas around Lebanon that we can certainly grow into, but I think this is probably the only development where you're going to see this type of mixture of land uses.
Now, does that 250 acres include the 50-plus acre park?
It does. So part of the development's called Parkside, and part of that thought is, really is kind of built around a 57-acre park, public park that runs through the middle of it. So the city was able to secure a grant, purchase the green space, and then part of that grant is also to construct a paved trail through there. So it's, over 20%, I forget the exact percentage, but over 20% of the property is dedicated green space or park space. And people like that. I mean, that's one thing we hear consistently is folks want to live, where they have access to parks, access to trail systems. So we purchased the property, that part of it's done for the park, and we're in the design phase right now for the actual trail system. The goal would be to connect that trail all the way into downtown Lebanon and then extend it in the future out to Armco Park and some of the other regional amenities to try to help, just try to facilitate that regional park and trail system.
Will the streets in Parkside be the city's responsibility or the developers?
Right now, the plan is that they would be public streets. Yeah, so they'll be built to city standards, and it would be your typical residential public street.
So the city will be plowing the snow and all that?
Correct.
Because there are some divisions where the developer is responsible for those sort of things.
Yeah. There are scenarios where the developer, for whatever reason, has chosen to have the streets private. a lot of times you see that if they don't necessarily want to construct the streets to the width that the city would require, or if they don't want to put sidewalks in or don't feel it's necessary. So it's a decision point as a developer is looking at a specific property, whether or not they want the public streets or the private streets. Most folks opt for public streets, just kind of that public infrastructure. And Parkside will be public streets at this point.
Now, is it a 10-year plan? Is that what I read?
Yeah, it really is going to vary based on the market. Yeah. That's a hard one. That's a hard one to estimate. I like to describe it as a 10 to 20 year timeline. I think it's over 1,000 or roughly 1,000 units between all the the single family lots and the apartment units. So I really think realistically you're in that 10 to 20 year build out. I think the population projections, if you look at it at build out, it will likely add about 3,000, 2,000 to 3,000 new residents to Lebanon. And I think that's part of one of our biggest focus areas and challenges is we know that we're going to see growth this year. A lot of people want to live in Lebanon. We want to make sure we do it right. We want to make sure that it's quality development and that it's adding value to the community.
Now, closer to downtown Lebanon, there's a smaller development going to begin near Pleasant Square.
Right.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we call that the North Mechanic Street development. It's really a half block that the city actually purchased the property, back in the 90s, I think. It's been a while. And we went out and did kind of a public request for proposal process to look at partnering up with the developer to construct owner-occupied townhomes. So we were very specific in the sense that we wanted the townhomes to be owner-occupied for sale product. And we wanted them to kind of blend in and be an extension of our downtown. So folks love living near and in downtown Lebanon. That's one of our attractions. The 511 North Broadway development, those apartments and townhomes rented out almost immediately. So this is kind of building on that, that market or that demand for folks who want to be part of downtown Lebanon. We had done a downtown master plan years ago, and that was one of the things we heard is that we really don't have any new housing products for folks who want to be around, our central business district, but maybe they don't want to maintain an old home, Yeah. So this offers folks the opportunity to live within walking distance of our downtown, but it'll be a new townhome. So that, we partnered up, or Justin Doyle Homes is a developer on that. And they anticipate starting construction this summer as well. And
there's going to be a little kind of park connecting it to Broadway.
Correct, yeah. So when we did the 511 North Broadway project, which is the Catch a Fire Pizza and all of that, we did Berry Park. That was part of it, is just trying to tie in kind of that amenity and that streetscape feel to the development from our downtown. And we looked at the North Mechanic Street project and really felt like having that little connection out to Broadway with a little pocket park, again, it just kind of adds value and reinforces that sense of, hey, I'm in downtown Lebanon. So we are going to be doing that. The city owns a parcel that goes from the North Mechanic Street development out to Broadway. So we'll have a little walkway, streetscape, just a little landscaped area to tie in the proposed development with all the improvements that are underway on North Broadway.
Now, you mentioned 511 North Broadway. Is that practically completed now?
So the residential component is done, and they leased out immediately. They had great success. The Catch a Fire Pizza is up, and they're doing very well. The second retail commercial building, which is going to be the Mi Cozumel restaurant, they're targeting opening this spring. So that the exterior of the building is constructed. They're working on the interior finish right now with the goal of opening up in spring. I think there's an incentive to be open by Cinco de Mayo is my understanding from the developer. So that's underway. And there's the Mi Cozumel will take up most of that building, that new restaurant. And there's about 1,500 to 2,000 square feet that's still unleased that they're working with some potential tenants. So it's getting close to being done.
Will those be offices or something? Or?
I don't think it'll be offices. I'm not sure it'll be a restaurant. It may be more retail-ish, but I think they're open to really any options. They're in discussions with a few folks right now, but they haven't finalized anything.
Now, driving on North Broadway, I do see that one of the offices or vacant areas has a leasing agent on it. Is that permanent or just?
So that's CMC. So that's their leasing office.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of their permanent leasing office. It's right at the end of the Catch a Fire building there.
Now, one thing I've also noticed, and how many units are back there?
There's a total of about 115 units. That's townhomes and apartments.
And how many people do you estimate are there now?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the apartments are anywhere from 1 to 3 bedroom. I would say on average, you're probably looking at 300-ish maybe that are in there.
I haven't noticed much new traffic.
No, I mean, I think from a traffic standpoint, it hasn't been an issue. Any new development like that, we require a traffic impact study be done. So that's standard. Obviously, they did that, with the development, and yeah, I haven't seen that it's triggered any sort of traffic flow issues.
To get back to the roads for a second, for years, the complaint was, "Oh, Lebanon's terrible at fixing its roads," but the plans are beyond that. What's changed? Why are we doing so much great with road work now?
Well, it's clearly a focus. It's one thing that we heard loud and clear from our residents is that from a road service standpoint, we needed to do better. So in 2017, City Council passed legislation that essentially reduced the income tax credit from a full credit to a half credit. So that means if you live in Lebanon but work outside of Lebanon and pay income tax to another city, you still owe the city of Lebanon about 0.5% of income tax. When council adopted that, they were very specific, and it was in the legislation that all of that money is to be directed into our road program. And so we've done that. And so that in and of itself generates about $1 million of additional revenue every year that's been directed into our road program. I think then on top of that, we've seen business growth in Lebanon over the years, and I know it's been a priority for the city to direct that into our road program as well. So as our tax base has grown, we've taken advantage of the additional resources to work on our roads, and then grants. We're very aggressive when it comes to pursuing state and federal grants to help support our road program, and we've had good success with that over the last 5 years.
Now, where do these grants come from? Be state or federal, but are they different programs or?
They are, yeah, so they are. So when it comes to the road programs, there's the state grants primarily are what we call Ohio Public Works Commission grants. And I would say the city's averaged about $1 million a year in grants through the Ohio Public Works Commission. And it's a competitive process. Warren County is part of a multi-county area, which includes Butler, Claremont County, and Clinton County. And we compete for grants. But Lebanon, we've had good success securing that. So the Cherry Street Reconstruction Project, that's an OPWC grant. New Street was a Ohio Public Works Commission grant. So that's kind of the state level funding is primarily through the Ohio Public Works Commission program. But we've also pursued federal funding through OKI, which is kind of the clearinghouse for federal transportation funds. So we've also been pursuing the State Route 63 widening through OKI. And then we have been successful in getting some financial assistance for the State Route paving program through a federal transportation grant. So if there's a road grant out there, we're likely going after it. In some manner, because it really is the only way that we can keep, the level that we're at, keep that going. Because roads, as everything, they're getting more expensive to maintain, to fix, and so we have to be very aggressive with securing that money. And that holds true for our park system as well. If you see if you see a bike trail project happening in Lebanon, I can guarantee you it's grant supported. So yeah.
Now, with some of these grants, although I'm sure they vary, what percentage of the cost do they often cover?
Yeah, it does vary quite a bit. So the Ohio Public Works Commission or the state grants, it's roughly 50%. Some of the federal grants, you can get up into that like 75%. The more local contributions that you put into it, the higher your score is when it comes to competing for these projects. But I would say it ranges anywhere for us, anywhere from like 50% to 75%, depending on which project it is that we've been able to do.
Now, so far we've been talking mostly about state routes and U.S. routes, but there are plans for residential neighborhoods to be resurfaced too.
Yes. Yeah, so every year we call it the city paving program or the annual paving program. And if folks want to get more information about, what streets are on the program or where their street may be, you can go on our website to the engineering department page and download the 5-year capital improvement plan. So that really shows kind of what our plan is over the next 5 years in terms of which streets we're going to do. That plan changes every year. We're updating it right now. So it's not set in stone, but I think it kind of gives you an idea of where we're going to be targeting. We try to spread it out a little bit so we're not just doing one area. But yeah, the city's annual paving program, between the paving and then like the concrete that's tied into it, so the concrete curb and the sidewalks, usually that's about a $2 million plus effort every year, and that is 100% city funded. So there's really not a lot of grants out there to pay for residential streets that really focuses more on kind of higher traffic volume type streets. So that'll be happening. We're getting ready to put that out to bid for this year's program. And it'll be a big project.
Speaking of grants, I read that there is a $10,000 grant for small businesses in town. That's fascinating. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so this is a program that the city launched, probably about 3 or 4 years now.
Is it a city grant?
This is a city grant.
Oh.
So this is a program that the city launched, I want to say about 4 years ago. And what it does is it provides up to a $10,000 matching grant to businesses who are making permanent improvements to their building, their space, that either activates unused or underutilized space or creates new jobs or expands. Small businesses are the heart of Lebanon. I think the city highly values our small business community. So this is a program that the city initiated. It is 100% city funded, where we wanted to provide the opportunity for smaller businesses to receive some financial assistance if they are looking to make those type of investments in the building or in their space. Mm-hmm. And again, it needs to be geared towards creating jobs. So obviously for the city, the income tax is is our big kind of revenue driver. So the payback to the city is creating jobs, creating new business activity, which will ultimately help us generate more revenue to provide the services that we do. But yeah, we're excited about it. We've been able to help out a lot of good businesses in our community through the program, and I definitely want to give a shout out if there is a small business owner or somebody looking to start a business in Lebanon, make sure they're aware that this grant program exists. It is a 50% matching grant up to $10,000. So if you're looking at making $10,000 investment in remodeling space or doing something of that nature, you could get half of that reimbursed.
Is there any time limit on the grant? Is there an ending date or anything like that?
It really is. No, there's not an ending date. It really is kind of first come, first serve. So there's a certain amount that we budget every year for the program. And,
so if you don't get it this year, you could apply next year?
We've done it every year, yeah. Oh. So that's, it's subject to being approved in the budget. And then this year, along with the small business renovation grant, we're also launching a commercial facade improvement program. So if there's a property owner who wants to do some, fairly significant enhancements to the exterior appearance of their building, whether it's maybe, and this is for commercial building, not residential, but if they wanted to do something to maybe bring back some of the historic character of the building or replace windows, redo the facade, there's now a grant through the city that's available for that type of activity as well. So yeah, both of those programs we're excited about. Like I said, the small businesses in our community really drive a lot of what we do, and it's a good way for the city to support it.
You were mentioning bike trails earlier. Looking at a proposed map, there seem to be plans for bike trails all over the city.
Right. Yeah. So when we do our park surveys, or when we get feedback from our residents, there's, I would say, the top three amenities that folks want are trails. People want access to a trail system. And then we're hearing a lot about pickleball and splash pads. Those are the other two. But yeah, the trails, our goal is to connect as many neighborhoods to a trail system as possible. The Lebanon Countryside Trail that connects all the way down to the Little Miami Scenic Trail, it's been very, very well received by the community over the years. But what we've been trying to do is really branch out from that and connect other neighborhoods to that same type of trail system. So this past year, we were able to extend it down Deerfield and kind of over Bypass 48, coordinating that project with ODOT when they were replacing the Turtle Creek Union Road Bridge. And what that allowed us to do is connect all of the subdivisions that are on the east side of Bypass 48 to a trail system that allows them to safely get across Bypass 48.
So part of that bridge is the bike trail.
It is. We worked with ODOT and incorporated a dedicated raised bike path, if you will, into the bridge construction. And that's been something. I've been with the city over 20 years, and I remember the first year I started, folks were talking about, well, how do we get the subdivision and the neighborhoods on the east side of Bypass 48 connected? Because they are literally cut off by Bypass 48. So it's good to see that project come to fruition. It also connects our bike park. So literally you can bike from the Little Miami Scenic Trail all the way up into Lebanon and to the bike park as well. So that project got done. Again, state grant funded project to help support that. And then we're working on funding. We've already secured about $750,000 in grants to eliminate the bike lane on Broadway and replace it with a separate paved bike path behind the curb. So I think that'll make a lot of folks happy. And it's always been the plan to be able to transition from a bike lane to a bike path. But as I said earlier, really our ability to do trail projects is driven by grants. So we've been successful in securing some grants, and we're looking at doing that project in conjunction with the paving and some utility work along North Broadway that's planned for 2025.
Now, near the bike park and the bridge we were talking over the bypass is Lebanon's largest industrial park.
Yes.
There are some changes happening to that too.
Yeah. We recently annexed about 80 acres there. So that's always a priority for us, is to grow our industrial park and our business parks down in that area and see new facility investments. As I said, we are largely driven from a revenue standpoint by income tax revenue. We have a 1% income tax, which is one of the lowest in Southwest Ohio. But our largest employers are certainly in the business parks down there. So Advix, Mann, you name it. There's some amazing international companies down in our business parks and we continue to work towards supporting their expansion efforts, but also making sure that we have land available to attract new businesses that are looking to locate here.
A lot of people probably don't realize it's there. They don't see it, or if they do see it, they don't know it.
Yeah.
That's Lebanon.
Yeah, and that's good and bad. Yeah. The good is, obviously with a business park, you're likely to see, some, more of an industrial type setting. So you don't necessarily want that right next to your downtown, right? But I'll tell you, there's just a lot of amazing businesses down there that are doing some some really good work. So I always encourage folks to, kind of take a look down there. Whenever we participate with the Lebanon School District with a kind of student job shadows program, and I always take them down there because I'm like, do you realize that this exists? And for us, it's a big deal because, like I said, they're huge corporate partners for us.
How many businesses are there, and how much land is there?
There's over 2,000 acres total if you look at kind of that entire area. Number of total businesses, it's got to be over 100, but there's still quite a bit of undeveloped land. So that's good for us, and we're actively marketing it. So when we talk about Lebanon being able to grow, we're certainly not just focused on residential growth. What we also want to see is the business growth as well. So yeah, there's plenty of opportunities. We have our community development director, Jason Millard, who a good part of his daily activities is really marketing opportunities down there to the business community.
Now, with community growth, there are other need for growth too, and part of it's on Gloucester Road. We're fixing something there, and what's that?
Yeah, so Gloucester Road's going to get widened. So yeah.
But what's located there?
And then and then we also have we're replacing the Gloucester Road pump station. So that's our sewer pump station. So if you kind of look at the majority of Lebanon, the sewer flows to this pump station on Gloucester Road. And then the flow from there is pumped essentially 5 miles to our wastewater treatment plant, which is, the way I describe it, just outside of South Lebanon. So on the southern fringe of Lebanon. That pump station was undersized. It was built, I think, originally in the 1960s or so, and just to the point where it needed to be upgraded and expanded and replaced. So we received $4 million in state funding through Governor DeWine's office to help support that project. And as you drive down Gloucester Road, you can easily see the construction activity taking place. But the new pump station is designed and will be able to handle, the growth that we are not only seeing right now, but really the growth that is projected in the future.
So Parkside is sort of planned for.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. So whenever we look at utility infrastructure and investments like that, we really want to build this to handle kind of that full build out population projection, and that's what we've done with the Gloucester Road pump station. So it is about a $12 million investment. It's a big project for the community. And again, one of those that most folks probably don't know it's happening, but it really is critical for the continued success of Lebanon is to make sure that we have that infrastructure in place.
And working on the road would help that too.
Correct.
I mean, that's quite a rickety old road.
Yeah. It's it's I think maybe 19 feet wide. A standard road's 24 feet wide. So it's definitely to the point now where it needs complete reconstruction as well.
Now, Lebanon's public safety is also a place where there's improvement. What's going on with the police and fire department?
Right. Yeah, when we described the 2023 operating budget to City Council, I think we said there's really two focus areas in the budget. One is roads and infrastructure. The second focus area is public safety, and that's police and fire. So with police, we recently launched the body-worn camera program. So that's been fully deployed with our department, and there's certainly a cost to that, but we feel like it's a good investment both for our officers and for the public in general. But I think just as important, we added a second school resource officer. So that's a partnership that we have with the Lebanon School District, where they fund half and we fund half of the school resource officers. So we've continued to make those investments in ensuring that our schools are safe and having that presence on at the facilities as necessary.
Is this a new patrol officer?
So we added the position. So this is our second school resource officer, and what we didn't want to do is just take a patrol officer off the street and then assign them to one of the schools. We wanted to add this position and make sure that we're still maintaining our staffing levels with regards to patrol officers. So with the police department, yeah, we continue to make those investments, making sure that I think we've got an outstanding department. I think they do a great job. But they're being asked to do more and more every year. And a lot of times it's outside of maybe what you would think traditional law enforcement. They are dealing, they're kind of on the receiving end of having to manage a lot of the mental health challenges in the community. So it's very important that we continue to make those investments in our department and show that support. And I think that also applies to our fire department as well. So this year's budget includes adding 3 new full-time firefighter positions. Over the years, Lebanon's kind of had this hybrid part-time, full-time model with our fire department. And I would say up until a few years ago, that worked pretty well because there was enough supply of part-time firefighters to make it work, right? And when I say firefighters, I mean, these are the same folks that would go fight fires that are also providing the emergency medical services. But the part-time model is really becoming a huge challenge because there's just not the availability of part-timers at this point. A lot of the cities around us are transitioning to a completely full-time model, and that means they're hiring part-timers as quick as they can apply. So we're continuing that transition to more of a full-time firefighter EMS model with our fire department. And over the last 5 years, we've increased the full-time staffing levels by 60% in the department, and really need to continue to make that investment just to ensure that we're maintaining our service levels.
Now, I haven't read this anyplace. I just thought of it a few moments ago. The police department is using a headquarters, which is 60, 70 years old? Is there any plans to give them a new home?
So we are doing a facility study right now. So we've initiated it, and I think the first thing we're looking at is defining what their current and future needs are, and then really defining what size of a building would be necessary to support those future needs, and then also look at a cost estimate for it and potential location. So there's no concrete plans. We are in the very early stages of just kind of going through the assessment process. I think we know that if you look forward for Lebanon, that's the next kind of facility need would certainly be the police department. That building, like you said, it's served them for a number of years, but it's very similar to the old fire station in the sense that it has a lot of deficiencies right now. And our department does a great job of kind of working through that and making do. But certainly at some point in the future, there's going to be a need to provide a newer type facility for them to operate out of. So yeah, the first step is understanding what that might look like, understanding what the cost for that would be, and then start looking at potential funding options in the future.
Are there any issues that are coming up now that were new to the city that weren't necessarily problems not too long ago?
Ooh, geez. The last couple of years, just the growth. So, I think Lebanon has always had kind of that steady growth over the years, but we're definitely seeing more interest and more demand when it comes to growth. Luckily, we have a very good comprehensive plan, and part of that document is designed to help guide what we want that growth to look like. But I think a lot of what we focus on is making sure that we're, kind of managing that and facilitating that in a way that adds value to the community. I think in terms of new challenges, for us, you've heard a lot of communities talk about how the COVID and then the kind of the remote worker situation impacted them in the sense that they may have had a lot of office space that now is not used. For us, I'd say it's almost been a little bit of the opposite in the sense that we largely are a bedroom community. A lot of our folks who live in Lebanon work in either the Dayton or Cincinnati markets or Mason. And so the remote worker, really hasn't had a negative impact or hasn't been something that we've been challenged with. And so that hasn't been as big of an issue for us as it has for other communities. So I wouldn't say there has been anything unexpected. I think it's just needing to maintain high service levels in what we do.
Well, you made me think of something here, because what percentage of the residents technically work outside of the city?
That's a great question, and we try to estimate that. I think the best number that we can come up with is likely you're in that 60 to 70% don't work in the city. They work outside the city. That's kind of our working estimate, but it's certainly the majority do. And by the same token, we import a lot of employees in our industrial park, in our business parks. A lot of those employees don't live in Lebanon. So as the way state law is set up, you pay income tax where you work, not where you live. And we have no control over that. That's set by state law. So anytime folks are coming into our community and working at one of our businesses, we're essentially being able to collect tax revenue off of non-residents. So that's a good thing, right? But by the same token, those living here, if you're working in city of Cincinnati and you live in Lebanon but work in the city of Cincinnati, instead of paying Lebanon's 1% income tax, you're over 2% down in Cincinnati. So
now, to complicate that with the COVID restrictions, they on paper may work in Cincinnati, but they're working in Lebanon because they're working from home.
True.
Is that a new thing to look at?
Well, it was, and during COVID, that was a lot of where do you pay your taxes? Yeah. The state law, they really kind of provided clarity on that. So now, if you're a remote worker, if your company may be headquartered in Dayton, but you are working at home in Lebanon, you pay Lebanon income tax now. So that kind of got clarified throughout that process. And like I said, that's where I think to some degree it's kind of benefited Lebanon, because we do have a lot of remote workers that are in that situation. And it kind of makes sense that they would pay their income tax to Lebanon if they're working from home, because we're the ones providing them with that service, right? So
how does the city find out about that?
Oh, that would be a good question for our tax department, but certainly as a lot of the companies now, the larger companies, they know what the state law is. So a lot of income tax is actually withheld by the employer, and then they will just send it to the correct jurisdiction. But you're also required to file individually if your employer is not withholding income tax. So they have their ways to try to get it all straightened out. And I think most of the communities and jurisdictions in the area work together on that, share information.
Scott, is there anything else the citizens of Lebanon need to know about the state of Lebanon?
No, I would just encourage folks to stay engaged and stay informed. We're actually starting this Thursday a Citizens Academy class, and if there's still spots available. So if anybody's interested in joining that or being part of that, feel free to contact the city manager's office and my office, and we can get them signed up. But
what does that involve?
Oh, it's a 5-week session where we really cover every aspect of the operational details of the city. So you'll hear from me on certain certain aspects of what we do, but then we'll have our police chief come in and talk about police, fire, our public works director. So really it's an opportunity for residents who want to learn more about the services that the city provides, maybe why we do things a certain way. It's an opportunity to really learn in detail how we operate and the decision-making process and maybe why certain decisions are made. So it's a great learning opportunity, and I would always encourage residents to stay informed and stay engaged. I think we try to get information out through our monthly newsletter, through our website, through social media. But I would just encourage folks to participate. That's ask questions if you have a question or something that you're just not sure, reach out to somebody at the city and we'll get you an answer.
Okay. Well, Scott, thanks so much for being with us on the City Show.
Appreciate it.
Okay. And you take care, and we'll see you around town.